Hello, how are you? We have come to the end of another Booker Prize season, and this Thursday, November 19th, one of these books is going to be crowned the winner of this year's Booker Prize, or at least hopefully just one book will be announced as the winner. Won't get a repeat of last year and have a double winner. I don't think they'll let that happen again. I think it'll be just one winner, and I'm very intrigued to see which one it's going to be, because it's been a very interesting year for books. It's been a very interesting year for the Booker Prize, and so I want to talk about sort of the prize generally, but also now that I've read all of these books, I've read all of them in their entirety, except for one of them, which I've still only read 50 pages of. I wonder if you can guess which one it is. But yeah, I've read all the rest of them. And so I want to talk about these books because they're really interesting and maybe speculate about which one I think might win, which one I want to win, which ones I'm really rooting for. And I'm really interested to hear your thoughts about it too, if you've read any of the shortlist, if you have any predictions or thoughts or feelings about which one you really want to root for and that you're hoping will win. Please let me know in the comments below. But first I want to talk a bit generally about responses to this year's Booker Prize, because quite in all honesty, I have just found it a bit exhausting. Some of the discussion around this year's prize, how it's become so much about identity politics rather than the content of the books and the quality of the writing. And I just find that really discouraging because there's been a lot of talk about the identity of the judges and the identity of the authors, rather than the actual writing itself, which is really what it's all about. And, and I totally understand when people will have knee-jerk reactions to prize lists, because unless you happen to be incredibly well read, you probably won't have read all of the books on a prize list when it's announced. And so it's totally fine in a way, I think, to have a reaction, instantaneous reaction like that. But I think we should also think more about how those reactions are more based on our own assumptions than actually the content of the books. And really a prize is all about just encouraging you to, maybe this is the book you want to try reading. A group of people who have read a lot of over 100 books that have been published this year say that these are really quality books that you might want to give a try. And if you're not interested in them, that's totally fine. You don't have to read them. But yeah, I've just found it really discouraging that there's been a whole range of arguments. On one side, I've heard from multiple people that the Booker has gone woke and they're really only interested in amplifying a diversity range of voices rather than looking at the literature. And then on the other side, I've had a lot of criticism that in the video I made reacting to the shortlist, I spent a lot of time at the beginning talking about how Hilary Mantel wasn't on the shortlist rather than other books, and how that is really not doing a good service to the authors that actually are on the list, because there's so many debut authors on the list, and that I just wanted to talk about a straight white very prominent female author rather than these authors, which wasn't the case at all. I mean, if Anne Tyler was also on the long list for this year's Booker Prize, and if she had been shortlisted, I would have been just as disappointed if that book was on the shortlist rather than Hilary Mantel's novel, because I'd read them both, and honestly, Anne Tyler had no business being on the shortlist if Hilary Mantel wasn't going to be. And having read some of the other books on the shortlist, I feel the same way, that they don't really, that I would pick Hilary. I personally would pick Hilary Mantel's book over some of these books, but that's just my personal opinion. And the whole criticism about the Booker has just gone woke, I think that is really what that is more about, is that publishing is more willing to publish a range and diversity of authors now, a diverse range of voices, rather than, and also that the reading public is more interested in reading a diverse range of stories. And so I think the Booker Prize shortlist is just more a representation of that, rather than any sort of biases on the parts of the judges. And, and I don't know how the judging decision went. I don't know how these decisions were made. But I don't want to make assumptions about why they would have chosen these authors, because I think they're very well read and accomplished range of judges, and so I personally feel that they just picked these books on their merit. So those are my feelings about that subject. And but having said all of that, I am quite disappointed by this shortlist. Now having read all of them, or almost completely read all of them, in that there are 3 books, half of the list I'm just really wasn't that impressed by, and but there are 2 books on the list that I absolutely loved, and that I'm so happy to see here. So so since I made a video talking about the shortlist, I have finished reading 3 of the other novels on the list. So I wanted to talk about those briefly. So I read the Shadow King by Maaza and Mengiste, and like I talked about in a sort of wrap-up video, I really admired this novel. I thought it was really interesting, but it was more sort of admiring it rather than just enjoying the content of it. There were certainly scenes and some characters that I really enjoyed, but there's so much, and this has been talked about a lot, but there's just so much historical detail in here, and events that I personally didn't happen to be familiar with, that it was a bit of a slog to get through, and that I had to really concentrate and look up certain things to better understand what I was actually reading and what was actually happening in some of these scenes. But I still think it's a very accomplished novel, and I know that sort of I felt very similar to this as I did for reading Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel for the first time, that it's a very rich historical novel that uses a lot of historical detail, and it's really only probably on a rereading of it that you'll get much more out of it. And so I know if I went back and reread this now, and I wasn't just concentrating on the plot and what was actually happening and trying to figure out all of these aspects, that I would be able to enjoy the actual story a lot more and see the depths of the characters in a much more dynamic way. So that's sort of how I felt about this novel. Then I also read Burnt Sugar by Avni Doshi, and I just adored this story about a mother-daughter relationship where there's an adult daughter who now finds, because her mother is showing signs of dementia, that she has to care for her, and but which is kind of ironic because this is a mother who didn't care for her when she was a child as much as she should have. And the way she shows the layers of that bitterness and resentment and this animosity between them, but also a real love and trust that is sort of existed there, is so layered and dynamic, and it's so beautifully done. I found it very poignant, very moving, in the full range of emotions that she displays in this story, in this characters, and it's very intelligent and well as well, the way it looks at memory and our complicated perspective on different memories, especially childhood memories, and how trustworthy our memories are, and just the many different ways she shows this, both in the character's art and the way she looks at photographs, and is sort of discussing this whole subject and who we can rely on, and the tricksy way she sort of plays upon who you can trust in this novel is really intriguing, and just drew me through the novel. So I absolutely loved it and thought it was I think it's a brilliant novel, and for a debut novel it's so accomplished and really impressive, and I can't wait to read more by this author. And then I also read Diane Cook's novel, The New Wilderness, a dystopian novel set in the not too distant future where society most people in society live in overpopulated cities, which are becoming so incredibly polluted that a lot of children are growing sick. And one mother takes her child and a small band of volunteers out into the wilderness, where they try to have a nomadic existence of just moving along and killing to for their food and sustenance, and making makeshift shelters, and trying to battle the elements in order to survive. And I found this novel a bit of a slog, and was kind of disappointed. I think mainly because I didn't buy into the whole construction of it, the sort of the government body. Like, I didn't really understand how this society was being governed, and why there were certain rules in place, why these rangers had these this sort of power over them as they were had living this nomadic existence. And that really distanced me from getting emotionally engaged with the story and the characters. And so yeah, I found that quite frustrating, even though I know that that was sort of a plot point, and one of the intriguing things to draw you through the novel, that there were sort of sinister things happening in the background, and it reveals a bit of what that is. But still, I felt like it just didn't really make sense to me. I didn't really believe that things would sort of play out this way, even though she obviously makes a lot of good points about the climate crisis and what we might be driven to as a society. And there's a very moving mother-daughter relationship portrayed in this as well, which was portrayed in a way that I've not read about it before in literature, and which has a different kind of animosity in it, or a different dynamic to it, because of the circumstances, obviously, because she was driven to survive. And so yeah, I thought that was really interesting, but it took me about a third of the way through the novel to really get into it and sort of appreciate the characters more. And the sort of their day-to-day existence, I just found a bit of a slog to read about, or not that interesting to read about. So yeah, on the whole, I was rather disappointed by this novel. So those are my feelings about the other books. And I sort of wanted to go back to try reading Real Life, but honestly, when I picked it up before, I just really wasn't enjoying it. And there's so many other books that I really want to read, and that I'm more interested in. And and again, I think this is what the prize is all about. It's like, maybe here's a book that you try, but if you're not interested in it, I mean, even if you just read the summary of it and it doesn't sound like a book that you're interested in, then obviously read something else. I mean, this is just all about the enjoyment and pleasure of books, and having the opportunity to have a more in-depth discussion about these novels. And I've really enjoyed reading other people's and listening to other people's responses to all of these novels. People who have chosen to read the entire shortlist, or just select books on the shortlist, and why they related to it, why they enjoyed it, why they appreciated it. So yeah, I've enjoyed that whole aspect. So looking at the shortlist then, and I don't know if I'm in a place to predict what the winner might be, because with the International Booker Prize, I got it really wrong. The book on the shortlist that I liked the least was the winner of that prize, and so it could go that way again. So you might want to do the opposite of what I'm predicting or hoping will win. You never know, but yeah, I would say the two books that I think are the main contenders for me, which you can probably guess, are Shuggie, Bain and Burnt Sugar. I just loved these books so much as a reading experience. I wouldn't be mad if the Shadow King won. I think it's a great opportunity to say this is a book that you should really pay attention to, and maybe give a second try to if you tried to read it once and it wasn't successful. I think there are certain books that deserve more attention than we might give if we're just sort of reading something casually, or just but sort of recognizing that that's probably the kind of reading experience you'll get, that this is a book, you'll need to take time with and concentrate on, but you'll probably get a lot more out of and really appreciate it as a reading experience by devoting that time to it. So yeah, I wouldn't be mad if the Shadow King wins. And then yeah, I would be quite disappointed if any of these three novels won, just because I personally didn't enjoy them. But I've really appreciated hearing other readers' responses to them. I've heard very strong cases from readers, that I really trust and appreciate and admire, who've read them and loved them for different reasons. And yeah, it's been really interesting hearing those opinions. But I personally just didn't enjoy these novels and didn't think that they were that successful. So that's just my personal opinion. So if I was forced to pick a winner of between these two, I mean, it's really difficult because honestly, I did love both of these novels so much. And I've seen some criticism of Shuggie Bain, of people who haven't enjoyed it so much. And even though, there have been stories before about alcoholism and the destructive effects of that within a family, I think this does do something really different with that. And, and there are certain scenes that are so vivid in my memory still of how Douglas Stuart handled that subject, and which I thought were totally original and that I haven't read before. And so yeah, I did absolutely love Shuggie Bain, and I'm so happy to see all the success it's been getting. But if I was forced to pick a winner, out of these two, I probably would pick Burnt Sugar. I don't know, maybe it's just because it's more fresh in my memory, but yeah, I think it is so artfully done, so intelligent and wise in the observations about human nature she makes, as well as parent-child relationships, and just the story is so rich and rewarding. And this is a novel that I would really like to reread it again, because I think, knowing how the story plays out and not wanting to give any spoilers, it'll be interesting to sort of look for signs of that earlier on, of indications of that. And so yeah, I absolutely love this novel. So I'm sort of hoping and predicting that this novel wins. But as I said, my predictions of the Booker Prize recently haven't been very, very accurate or good. So it could very well be Real Life that wins this prize. And in a way, I'd be very happy, if this author wins, that if Brendan Teller wins, what a fantastic thing for a debut author to win such a big book award. I think it's an amazing prize, and I think the writing is very interesting, but just I personally don't think it's very successful what he was trying to do. And, and that's only based on reading 50 pages of this book. So obviously I don't have a fully rounded opinion of this novel. But, again, there's just other books that I'm personally more interested in reading before trying to go back and finish reading this, though I would be interested to at some point. So those are my thoughts and feelings about the shortlist and about who I think might win. But yeah, let me know who you think is going to win this Thursday, and if you'll be tuning in. I mean, it's really exciting to see the ceremony that they've prepared. Obviously, I won't be able to take you along to the ceremony as I have in recent years, because it's not happening in a sort of normal physical space because of events of this year, and that's sort of a shame. But also, it's really exciting that the lineup they've made, and there's going to be speeches by Barack Obama and the Duchess of Cornwall, and as well as some past Booker Prize winners. So Bernardine Evaristo and Margaret Atwood and Kazuo Ishiguro are going to talk about the Booker Prize, and so that'll be exciting and fun to see, as well as dramatized readings from these different novels. And I always enjoy hearing readings of the books because, it sort of gives a different perspective on them. So I think the events are going to be really exciting, and it's sort of wonderful in a way that it's all going to be online and accessible to everyone. But also, hopefully there'll be a press conference with the winner of the prize after it is announced, and I should be able to watch along with that. So hopefully I can film a reaction video and film some of that, so you can see some of that as well. So I'll be be really excited to watch and follow along from the comfort of my home. I don't know if I'm going to put on a tuxedo and get all dressed up for it, just for the fun of it, or just stay in my pajamas. We'll see what happens. Let me know what you think I should do if I film a reaction video. But more importantly, let me know what you think about these books, if you've read any of them, or if you're interested in reading any of them now based on my comments or anyone else's reactions who have been following along with the prize. Let me know about that in the comments below, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye, everyone.